"I'm going on an adventure," was Bilbo's cry as he chased after the dwarves and Gandalf in the beginning of The Hobbit. Little did he know that he would return over a year later changed. The people we've all been researching were all going on adventures on which they chose to or were forced to go. Hi, I'm Sarah Davis-Leonard, and this is my adventure this week. I've always viewed going into the library stacks, physical or digital, to be an adventure, and this week was no different. The focus of this week's research was Scholarly Survey, with two different databases being the focus, one for American history and the other for European. Due to the detainment of the Japanese ambassador to Germany, General Hiroshi Oshima, and his embassy staff at Bedford Springs Hotel in the closing months of World War II, I chose to research in both. First with the American database, American History and Life, and can you believe it, right off the bat, I found an article about the detainment of the Japanese at Bedford Springs. This article, I will admit, I have seen in paper floating around family reunions, but never as a digital source. My grandmother and great-aunt both worked at the hotel when it was being used as a Navy training school, and later as a detainment camp. Due to the secrecy and nature of their work, my grandmother and great-aunt never spoke, due to signing maybe potential secrecy agreements about what they did and were interested in the reporting on the hotel. Even today, my great-aunt still is tight-lipped, which is one reason why I think there's a lack of primary sources regarding the day-to-day activity of the hotel as a detainment camp. But there is always more than one way to skin a cat, as my first result provides. The article Japanese at Bedford mentions the outcry of the public at the detainment of the enemy in one of the nicest hotels in America at the time. It was a former summer White House and the location where the first transatlantic cable was received by then President James Buchanan, and the local Bedfordians were outraged and expressed it via letters to local press, and even General George C. Marshall. I found this to be another avenue of further research, as the George C. Marshall Museum is located in Lexington, Virginia, on the campus of Virginia Military Institute. VMI sits next to the campus of Washington and Lee University, where I conducted much of my master's research while teaching in a local public school. Also, having looked ahead to next week's topic on newspaper research, I can point my research in the direction of letters through the editor. Found in the American History and Life database in his magazine article from Pennsylvania Heritage entitled Giving New Life to a Grand Dame by Bonnie Wilkinson Mark. I could not find access to the actual article through the database, as I kept receiving an error message from EBSCOhost that I was not logged in, so I went back to the physical site of the magazine, which is run by Penn State. The summer 2010 back issue in which the article is contained is for sale for $6, and I will be purchasing it. For the blurb contained on the database, the article primarily focuses on the hotel's popularity as a resort in the 1800s, hence why James Buchanan, Aaron Burr, Seward, and other famous Americans sought it out as a destination of rest and relaxation. The European database. Historical abstracts through EBSCOhost. For this search, I focus on General Hiroshi Oshima and his staff, and more regarding his capture. My first search resulted in 10 matches, all of which are authored by Carl Boyd, the prime researcher on this topic and former history professor at Old Dominion University. I already owned Boyd's 2 books on the subject and found his dissertation in our first week's research. It surprised me to see that the viewpoint Boyd brings to the topic shifts, as some articles were written for intelligence magazines and others for Asian history. I have never viewed this topic of the indeterminate of the Japanese embassy staff through the lens of Asian history, as I have not had much reading in this subject outside of Western interactions, but now knowing that the articles have been written on Oshima in Asian history magazines, I now have another route of research to follow, which will lead me, no doubt, on another adventure.